When I was growing up, Dad would take us camping every month of the year, even in December and January. And most times we wouldn't even take a tent. We would just sleep in sleeping bags around the fire, and we'd take turns telling stories about bridge trolls and mountain trolls and just making up stories, and fairies and sprites and stuff like that.
Well, tell me about, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in East Tennessee at the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, the Cherokee National Forest, in between the Hiwassee River and the Ocoee River, where the Olympics, they had the Olympic, the whitewater rafting and rowing and stuff on the Ocoee there one year. And I remember when they did some work on the river leading up to the events, and they would come in and they would label the rocks that they moved, so that after everything was over, they could replace the rocks where they were before. And so they prepped the river in different places to kind of make it the way they wanted,
So you said your dad took us, your siblings?
My brother and sister, yeah.
Gotcha.
My mother would go with us to begin with, and she had a real bad toothache one time while we were camping, and she never went camping again.
That was it.
That was the last time she ever went with us. That toothache was the end of her camping adventures,
Well, as kids, did you guys like it?
Oh yeah, we loved it. It just really, it contributed a lot to who we are as adults. Our love for the outdoors and whatnot. And I guess that's a part of the reason why I'm so comfortable out here. Tanya, my lady, my fiance, tells me, "You like it, don't you? You like being out here." And it's not that I like it. It's just, I guess I can
Tolerate
it more so than others, and I'm more comfortable,
Gotcha.
Because I think while it exposes us to a lot of harshness and a lot of elements, it also, I think, protects us from a lot as well. That I think like everybody that's sitting around with a cell phone to their ear or a laptop in their lap, none of us do that. And those are just all the pixels in their face all the time. Those things are every other demographic of people within our society are exposed to those things, and this demographic of the homeless population are some of the few who aren't.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I haven't thought about that.
I think it protects us from some of the things that other people take for granted.
Interesting, right? Yeah, you don't know.
For whatever that's worth.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to growing up a little bit. Tell me about your home life and the dynamic. And
so I remember my first memory was we lived in a little place called Charleston, Tennessee. And I remember I've got a few memories from Charleston. When I was 4 years old, I had spinal meningitis, and I was in the hospital for 10 days. It nearly killed me. The doctors say that I'm lucky to still have all of my senses. And as I was going blind, and my mother didn't realize it. I was starting to walk into things, and the neighbor who was my mother's best friend for over 20 years is my godmother. Noticed that there was something wrong with me, and that and she talked my mother into taking me to the hospital, and gave us a ride to the hospital where they discovered that I had spinal meningitis. I remember I've got a memory from the hospital. I remember my sister coming in. They had to sneak my little sister in to see me, and I remember her coming to see me in the hospital at 4 years old. I remember a clown at the hospital. I remember my mother chasing me around the front yard with with a switch or something. It seems like there might have been a switch. There may not have been a switch, but I remember trying to outrun my mother in the front yard and running circles. I remember in the winter, my dad had found a bird had flown into the window, and it had a banded ankle, and so he called in to the place that was doing the bird study or whatever, and let them know that he found one of their birds or whatever. I remember that. So those are some of my first memories as a child from about 4 years old.
Yeah.
And
so you went to school in
yeah, I was in
high school, did all that
in
stuff?
the 4th grade. I took a TCAP test, the Tennessee whatever, their yearly test for everyone. Everyone they from state to state, they all take their placement test or whatever. On the 4th grade, I took a test in Tennessee in the public schools there, and in Benton, Tennessee, and I did so well on these tests in the 4th grade that Duke University started sending my parents letters. Some program or something they were doing with children that scored high in the earlier grades, that they I'm not sure exactly what it was, but when I was a junior in high school, you could volunteer to take the ASVAB test. It's the first time I took the ASVAB, and I volunteered to take the ASVAB just to get out of class for the day. And as a junior in high school, I made the highest scores on the ASVAB out of the entire school as a junior. And the seniors, some of the seniors also took it. But I made the highest scores in the school, and which got me out of class for quite a few more days, because the recruiters wanted to talk to me all the time after that. And from all the different branches. So I'd get the recruiter from the Navy and the Air Force, and they would want to pull me out of class and come to the counselor's office and talk about my future and whatnot. And I'd go talk with them just to, get out of some more class. But when I was a junior in high school, my I did my part of my junior year I spent in Key West high school. My mother sent me to live with my uncle right after sophomore year. She sent me to live with my uncle, and
why was that?
Well, my mother divorced my father when I was 14. So going into high school, she divorced my father, and they had bought a house together some years before that in Inglewood, Tennessee, and some people call it Saginaw, and so when they divorced, my mother moved to the next town over. So I started going to high school, having lived out in the outskirts of Inglewood all the way through the 8th grade, and then my mother sent me to live with my grandparents from her side of the family, which were Yankees from New York, and I don't tell many people that, but yeah, my mother's family is from Western New York.
As a kid, what were you thinking?
As a kid,
was it scary? Was it fun? Was it?
And I'm in New York, and the other children were like, "Say something."
Because of your accent.
Yeah. They wanted to hear me talk, and and I didn't think a whole lot of it, but looking back at it, they were kind of picking on me. So, my aunt in New York, when I get to New York right after 8th grade, my aunt had one of her childhood friends that my mother and her grew up with had a daughter that was also my age. So my Aunt Barb called Kelly Green and said, "Oh, hey, send Aaron over to meet Nicolas, and so your kids can hang out with our kids." And so Aaron comes over, and we hit it off really well, and Aaron was my first sweetheart, and so I had my first taste of love, and when the summer was over, I called my mother and begged her to let me stay in New York. I said, please, let me stay, and she wouldn't let me stay, and so Aaron and I, we cried, and I had to come back to Tennessee, and which was, probably for the best, but.
Well, let's see, after high school, what's going on after high school?
Well, she sent me to Key West as a junior.
Okay.
When I'm living with my uncle in Key West, and my first taste of responsibility, I had the only rules I had were I had to go to school every day. I had to make AB honor roll, no C's. C's were unacceptable, and if I did any drugs like smoking weed or whatever, I had to do it at home. And other than that, I didn't have a curfew or anything. I had to pay rent.
So you had to work. Have a
yeah.
job.
When I got there, the day after I get there, I'm at work making $15 an hour cash, which was big bucks for a 16-year-old at that time, or I thought so. And so I worked all summer. I bought my first mountain bike. I paid $1,000 for this bike. It was on a Trek 7000, and I had to make payments. I paid payments on it all summer, and then right as the summer was over, I paid that bike off. And for 3 days, I didn't get off of that bike. I only to sleep and to take a class. I would ride it to school. I'd eat on it. I pedaled that bike. And then when I left Key West, I broke it down and put it in a box, and I shipped it back to Tennessee. And I've always been a cyclist, like a bike enthusiast, since Key West. Really, when I first get to Key West, my uncle loans me their grocery bike, and the grocery store was like, Key West is 4 miles by 2 miles, and the grocery store was on the other side of town. We were in Old Town Key West, 1 block from Duval Street, and 7 blocks down Whitehead we were on Whitehead. 7 blocks down Whitehead in one direction was the southernmost point in the continental United States. It's 90 miles to Cuba. It's 110 miles back to the mainland of Florida, and then and the Hemingway house is halfway to the southernmost 3-4 blocks from the house, and then the other direction, about 7 blocks or so, is Sunset Park, where every night all the tourists and some of the locals go, and they see all of the local acrobats and the one-man shows and stuff, and they have the Sunset Festival every night. They watch the sun go down in Key West there, and halfway to Sunset Park and the Sunset Festival is the Audubon Society. Has a house and with beautiful gardens, and I remember I would jump their fences at night after they're closed and just walk in their gardens by myself, and all of their different plants and stuff would have little placards, with explaining what this plant or this tree is. And I remember we were building a house for a dentist, and my uncle was the second lead, and he had soon after I get there, he made first lead, because the first lead had come in early one morning to get some dental work done from the dentist. Had his practice next door. His mother's house was behind the house we were building, and the first lead for some reason had a second job as a bartender at this Irish pub, and he had kept the bar all night and closed the bar down, and because he didn't want to miss his dental appointment before construction started, he goes and he just sits on the porch at the dentist's office.
Stayed up all night.
And he catches a couple hours of sleep. So when the dentist comes in, he wakes up the lead and escorts him in, and then sits him in the chair. And while he's getting ready to do the dental work, the lead falls asleep in the dentist chair, and the dentist can't wake him up to do the dental work, and then actually had to get the owner of the contractor to come and carry this guy out of his office. So that's the day my uncle made lead. And my uncle was engaged to a lady from the Czech Republic, Linka. And I remember our other roommate was Petra Bakova. And my uncle had plans for me to marry her so she could get her papers. I was 16.
Well,
and
you told me before we started recording when you met up with your dad at some point. And
yeah,
you said
when I left Key West, my mother divorced my dad. He's my stepfather, but he was there for my first birthday.
Okay, gotcha.
And he was there for my first birthday. He was there for me at times when my mother wasn't. And after my mother divorced and I was 14, so he would get visitation with my brother and sister.
Still involved, right?
And I would still go and see him, but she wouldn't let me go move out back to Inglewood to live with him because I feel like maybe she would take that as him getting a win over her or being a better parent in some ways, because he was better able to manage me as a teenager than she was able at that time. And so yeah, she wouldn't let me go live with my dad. She when I was 14 or 15, right after sometime my freshman year, I think it was going into sophomore year or something, I went. She put me in like a group home for like 4 months. Wow. Like a behavioral thing. I had been arrested as a teenager 4 or 5 times, half a dozen times, for like punching holes in walls. Wow. I had some anger issues, as a teenager, as a 14, 15-year-old, started experimenting with drugs and drinking. And when Mom moved us to the next town over, we went from living out in the country to living in like a project, in the next town. And so I started going to high school from what they call Circle Drive, which was like the local low-income housing, projects. And so I met this lesbian couple who would take me to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge and taught me how to shoplift. And we would go and shoplift stupid stuff, souvenir stuff, and fill up trunks full of this type of stuff. And just, I don't know what we were thinking or why we would want such things, but that was my kind of introduction to the criminal mentality of as well as started drinking and smoking weed, and
well, did that progress?
And taking pills and stuff, yeah, and taking Xanaxes and Klonopins and stuff, and freshman year was when all that stuff kind of started, and by the time sophomore year got there, it was bad enough that my mother
Gotcha.
had me go to the behavioral place. It's gonna be a minute. When I'm done. Yep. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. When I came home, last thing I remember about the behavioral health place, they had like an intervention with me where all the staff members they called me upstairs and sat me in a chair. I'm sitting there by myself, and there's like 15 or 20 staff members surrounding me, and they all took turns telling me how basically I had put no effort into changing or bettering or fixing the things that were wrong with myself, and basically how all my time there was wasted, and how I should be ashamed of myself or this and that. And I had this big, huge intervention, and then they said, well, you're a hopeless case, and sent me home, pretty much. But I feel like I did really well. I mean, I went from like, my grades improved from where at school I was, the 6 weeks prior to me going there, my report card said my average was like 10. And then once I got to the Camelot Care Center, my report card went from a 10 to a hundreds, all hundreds, and like I said, I made the highest scores out of the whole school on my ASVAB.
Did you ever continue that and go to college and do
Well,
that?
I did. I have been to college, but not until recently. I've got some college under my belt now. I'm 2 quarters from finishing my associate's degree in a contemporary business program at Renton Technical College. I've got 2 quarters left.
And what was happening in your life in your 20s when you're doing all this stuff?
In my 20s, man, I was my senior year of high school. I dropped out of high school.
Okay.
I got my GED because my neighbor, Cornbread, paid for me to go and take my GED, and he was so adamant that I needed that GED, that I wasn't going to be able to do anything in life or go anywhere in life, that I really needed that GED. And I guess I did, because without the GED, I wouldn't have been able to go to college later, and I would have eventually had to get my GED in one of the times I went to prison. But this last time I was in prison here in Washington State, I did a 87-month sentence, and it took me a little over 59 months to complete 87-month sentence with the good time and whatnot. And but while I was in prison this last time, I've been to prison in 4 states. And first it was Florida, and then while I was awaiting trial in Florida, 6 different public defenders came to me in jail and said, "There's been an offer in your case, and we suggest you take the offer. The offer is 10 years minimum mandatory, no good time. We suggest you take the deal for 10 years, because the charge was 10 to life. It carried 10 to life for an armed burglary, because while in the act of committing a burglary, I armed myself by stealing a firearm. They called that an armed burglary. Florida's got a gun law, 10, 20 life, use a gun and you're done. If you commit a felony while in the possession of a firearm, it's a 10 years minimum mandatory. If you commit a felony and you brandish the firearm and pull it out, it's a 20-year sentence, minimum mandatory, no good time. And if you commit a felony and fire a shot, even if it's into the ground or into the air, it doesn't matter. It's a life sentence, and that life sentence is a life sentence.
So did you take that 10 years?
No, fuck no. I was not going to take 10 years. I didn't. There's no way. I was ready to go to trial. I wanted to go to trial, and I wrote a motion after the 6th public defender came to see me. I wrote a motion to dismiss the entire public defender's office as counsel, and I explained in the motion the 6 different public defenders that had come to see me, and how they all just wouldn't even read my discovery, and it's a long story, but I could have beat that at trial, but when the judge granted my motion to dismiss the public defender's office as counsel and allotted me like $8,000 or something towards a private attorney. And the private attorney came to see me, and the first thing he says is that we're going to get the minimum mandatory dropped and get you sentenced based off of your points or whatever, however they do. And it went from like 120 months down to 70 right away. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a lot more manageable, and is what I'm thinking. I mean, who wants to do 70 months? But it's a lot better than 120, I'm thinking at the time. And then the next time he's supposed to come see me, he doesn't. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go again, And so I've got a court date the next day, and I get to court, and he's not there. And his assistant his paralegal speaks up for him when they call my name, and says that they want to set the case for plea and sentencing tomorrow. And I'm thinking, plea and sentencing, change the plea, like, I don't even know what the deal is or the offer is. How do you know I'm going to accept it? Like, how do you want to set me up for plea and sentencing tomorrow? You're not even sure if I'm willing to change my plea to guilty and accept your offer or their offer that through my attorney. And the next day, I get to court for a change of plea, and I still don't know what the offer is going to be. And finally, my lawyer shows up right before I'm supposed to go into the courtroom and tells me that Basically, I've been in jail for a year, and he's got an offer for 18 months. So basically, I could do 6 more months.
Because you've already done the year.
I could do 6 more months, or I could take a chance at 10 to life. And I'm sure I've got it beat, but I've never been to trial before, and I'm scared. It's my first time in the whole judicial system, and just like the first time I was ever arrested, I was like 14, and my mother beat me until I was 14, and then one day, a couple days after Christmas, the day after Christmas, I believe it was, she was beating on me and want me to go to my room for the day, and I didn't want to go to my room for the day. It's the day after Christmas, and it snowed, and I want to be a part of the family, and I want to play with our new gifts, our toys, and my brother, spend time with my brother and sister, and she's trying to send me to my room, and I didn't feel like I should have to go to my room or whatever, and she's beating on me, and she had these real thick fingernails, and she'd break them off in my arms as she tries to drag me to my room, and then get mad at me for her breaking a nail, and things like that, and I told her, if you don't quit hitting on me, I'm gonna hit you back. And I told her half a dozen times, and I started like pushing her back with my foot, and I put my foot out and put my foot in her chest and push her away from me, and she still wouldn't quit. And here's someone taking photos. Have you heard anyone mention gang stalkers?
I have.
Do you know that those are real?
It's hard to say.
In 2010, there was a tax, a head tax, and it started out. The city council funded these people. The first $250,000 was funded by the city council of Seattle, and it was funded for the head tax because they figured that we are taxed here, a business tax. There is no business tax, it's property taxes. And they figured, well, all these homeless people aren't contributing to the property taxes. Those of us that don't own property contribute to the property taxes in the form of our rent and our leases on our homes, on our domiciles. When we pay our rent, a portion of that rent is to pay for the tax, the property tax on the room or the house or apartment that we're renting. A portion of our rent payment goes towards the property taxes. So everyone contributes to the property taxes except for those of us that don't rent or own property. And they said, well, shit, we got to find a way to tax these people. So we got to know how many of them are there. So let's do a head tax on the homeless, and then we'll figure out how much they're not paying in taxes, and we'll split that up amongst those that do pay property taxes, and we'll tax them more to make up for the homeless that ain't paying tax. And it was called the head tax. And a group in the comments after the city council meeting in 2010, somebody got on there and said, hey, what would it be worth to you guys if we were able to reduce the amount of homeless in Seattle, or convince some of these homeless to go and be homeless somewhere else or whatnot, because that would reduce the tax burden on those that are going to have to pay the burden. And it turned into a study just to collect data on how many are homeless, and which ones are need mental health services, which ones need addiction treatment services, which ones are actively committing property crimes, which ones are this and that and everything else, right? And which ones just need a bus ticket out of town. Yeah. And that's how it started.
And that's turned into the gang stalking.
The city council gave them $250,000 in 2010 to do a study, to make a report on us, to submit this report with this data, and before the vote on this head tax.
Well, I'm curious, Nicolas, that person who took the picture without our consent, what does that feel like?
It feels It feels violating.
Yeah, because
I mean, I don't like to have my photo taken unless I've
consent.
Clearly, I've told you it's okay to videotape me.
I can hear the frustration.
It's not so much frustration as it's like a systemic. It's a systemic discrimination. It's like they're making. She didn't just take a photo of me, or I don't know if she even took a photo of me. She was taking a photo of this area behind you there, where there's a RV and some homeless folks gathered, and she's making assumptions and trying to link these individuals with some other incident involving property crime or some theft, more than likely.
Right.
And
because housed people don't steal.
Of course not. And it's the drugs that make these people steal.
And only
it's the drug use. It's not
drugs.
the lack of access to drugs. It's the drugs themselves that just make people just where they have to go steal something.
Yeah, it's complex.
The problem is the opioid addiction policy is inadequate. The property crimes would stop. The retail theft would stop. The homeless problem would nearly be eliminated. The death by overdose could be reduced by over 90% just by enacting an opioid addiction policy where opiate addicts can have access to their opiate of choice in an amount, in a dosage that they can be stable on, prescribed by a physician under a physician's supervision. And even if they have to go daily to get their dose to begin with, but methadone and Suboxone aren't adequate opioid medically assisted treatment programs, MAT programs. In my opinion, the only MAT program that's going to be effective is going to be a medically assisted treatment, opioid addiction, medically assisted treatment, a MAT program where opiate addicts can have access to fentanyl or their opiate of choice, which if you talk to almost any opiate addict, their opiate of choice is more than likely fentanyl.
Right now it is, right?
And, I've struggled with opiate addiction for 20 years. My dad gave me my first shot of opiates when I was like 18. I remember as a K4 Dilaudid, and I was going to do it either way. But I was attempting to do this shot because a week or so before, my neighbor had a Dilaudid on his little counter, and he's like, "Hey, do you know what that is?" And I look at it, and I'm like, "No, what is that?" And at that time, I had snorted some Oxycontins.
What's a Dilaudid? I don't know.
A Dilaudid is a hydromorphone. It's a morphine. Okay. It's a derivative of morphine. Okay, gotcha. And it's what they give you at the hospital in a shot if you were in severe pain, and it's a pharmaceutical opiate. And the pharmaceutical opiates, in my opinion, are a lot safer than street opiates in the way of they're consistently the same potency.
You're touching on something that is incredibly valid, which is if they legalize drugs and produce them like pharmaceuticals, incredibly safe, and they weren't dirty, like on street, it's like you're on the right track.
And in order to be in the program, you have to go on contract, agreeing to not participate in any crimes or theft, especially thefts, property crimes or retail crimes, and you also have to agree not to share your dose or get caught selling any of your doses. And you also have to agree to wear either an ankle bracelet or a wrist bracelet that can detect overdose, alert paramedics, and even administer Narcan. It could eliminate death by overdose due to opiates and fentanyl by over 90%. It would eliminate the black market for fentanyl as well.
That's what I'm saying. It's very...
But where people break down with this concept is a lot of these squares that don't have a background of some type of background with drug use or haven't experienced homelessness or
education.
They break down where the concept of Why should I have to quit using fentanyl? It's my free will to, if that's my choice,
Totally.
I should have access.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to not use fentanyl because you deem it morally unacceptable.
Well, we can talk about illegal.
It's illegal.
There's legal.
There you go. It's illegal.
There's lots of bars around here.
But it's illegal, right? It's illegal because they've deemed it a unscheduled substance or scheduled substance, right? But why is it morally unacceptable though to some people? Whereas I understand it's illegal, but why is it just morally? Some people just can't get it. Let's say we change the laws. Let's say we lobby our legislators. Let's say we petition for a trial program and it's successful. Look at Holland and Quebec, Canada, where they are doing this. And the property crimes reduced over 90%. These problems that are their societies have similar problems as ours does, and theirs are those same issues in their societies are reduced by over 90%. I think it would work here as well, the same. But when I talk to law enforcement officers, when I talk to paramedics, when I talk to those people who experience the opioid
their hands-on
epidemic
right.
daily,
right.
You know, they see the effects it has on our community.
Yeah.
They see the devastation it causes families and communities. They see the property crimes and the retail theft, and they see the overdoses and the deaths. And I talk to these people about it, a change in policy, and they shut down at the concept of why can't an opiate user continue to use opiates if they choose? Why shouldn't they be allowed to? Why is it morally unacceptable for them? Why is the concept of someone choosing? Because the federal government, the pharmaceutical companies accepted their liability. And the only opiate addicts that received any of that judgment were ones that could show a physician over prescribing. But those aren't the only people that were affected by the opioid crisis, just because the physicians, it started in coal country. These coal miners were getting prescriptions for back injuries, and the doctors were over prescribing, and these coal miners were used to having an income, and now all of a sudden they don't have an income, but they got over prescription of opiates, of Oxycontin.
And there's a lot of profit to be made.
And they start selling these they realize, hey, I can supplement my income with these extra pills I don't need.
Interesting, yeah.
And they start selling these Oxycontins in coal country. And then next thing you know, we got the pill mills in Florida, where you could go, literally, people were driving from New York and Pennsylvania they put 6 people in a van and drive 16 hours to Florida and go see 4 different doctors. All 6 of them would have the same 4 doctors, and they'd go see 6 people, see 4 doctors. They'd come back with 24 prescriptions in the van, and then they would kill themselves on the interstate coming back because they nodded off. And the state troopers figured it out. Well, how come all of these fatalities on the interstate, we're finding these pills with the same name, multiple prescriptions for the same person for opiates that are in excess of what someone should need? This ain't making sense here. And the state troopers on the interstate figured it out first when the fatality rate on the high interstate going north went up drastically. And then in these fatalities, they would find in these cars that were totaled all of the excess opiate prescriptions, and they figured it out first, and that's when the DEA finally, or the FDA finally created a database with some accountability as to so you couldn't doctor shop any longer.
Right. And then the lawsuits. But I mean, well, you said something earlier. The policy change.
The policy change is what it takes, man.
To do that is incredibly complex and tough.
It is.
But possible.
It is. And it takes people passionate about it, and people who have been affected by the opioid crisis
And thinking outside of the box.
which is all demographics of people.
That's right.
But it's going to take getting through to those that they shut down as soon as you tell them these opiate users should have the right to use the opiate of their choice, not the opiate that you find suitable, being methadone or Suboxone. Why shouldn't these? You've got all of these opiate users, and they would all prefer to continue using opiates, and they would much rather not be homeless. They would much rather not have to steal to gain access to the opiates. They would much rather go to an appointment once a week.
And my guess is too, that's a lot cheaper.
It would the
and to that, I mean, we talk about all the stuff, and I always come back to follow the money.
yeah.
There's big profits to be made with what's happening that's working right now. Or
Yeah.
I don't say working, but that's happening right now.
The way the
system
is
because again, follow the money.
yeah.
Lots of profit to be made.
And you know why recently we've had a I would call it an epidemic. It's a pandemic. I don't know what you'd call it, a crisis. Another it's called boat glue.
Tell me more.
Have you heard of boat glue?
No.
Oh, everyone! It's a big rave. Everyone is ranting and raving about boat glue lately, and it's a industrial adhesive. So the carfentanil is so strong that there's 1,000 milligrams in a gram, and with carfentanil you can take like 3 milligrams and get loaded. So literally, like the street fentanyl today, say most average street fentanyl, you can do 100, 200 milligrams in a setting and still get up and function. But with carfentanil, it's 100 times stronger.
The potencies.
So what they do is they take the carfentanil and they have to cut it like 100 times to get it to be a street level dosage. And the problem with doing that is you get inconsistent spots in the kilo or whatever.
Sure.
Where it's stronger here,
Right.
and
It's like an edible brownie or something.
And it attracts it to itself. So it wants to bond back to, anytime it finds another molecule of carfentanil, it wants to stick to its kind. And then, so you'll get spots where there's hardly any, and then you'll get spots where it's
Really potent.
Even if you mix it well or mix it for hours and hours in a mixer, so you need a binding agent to bind the fentanyl molecules to the cutting molecules so that they cannot lump back together. So you're not going to have hot spots and cold spots, you can call them. And the problem with that is that up until recently they've used it's a plant. It's a derivative of a plant or something that they were using. And what the problem was that China produces the fentanyl and the fentanyl precursors. And then they send it to Mexico. They sell it to Mexico. And then Mexico used their drug pipelines to get it into the United States. Or so they say. And but here, in the last 6 months or so, the 3 largest pharmaceutical companies in China, the top people from those 3 pharmaceutical companies were indicted in China for selling fentanyl and fentanyl precursors into Mexico. So there's some accountability. And that's the problem. The Chinese are like, well, it is no longer worth the risk because now there's actual consequences, right? So now that there's actual consequences, they're like, and also the biggest cartel in Mexico told all of its cartel members, we're not dealing in fentanyl any longer. And if any of our members deal in fentanyl, the consequence is death. So you've got some of the smaller cartels that picked it up, but the major one that was responsible for the transport and whatever wash their hands of it, and that was a deal that they made with the feds to get the Chapo's son back.
Oh, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just telling you what happened.
Well, you mentioned boat
glue.
Boat glue.
They used this industrial adhesive as a binding agent.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It hit all 50 states in 2 weeks. It made the national news. It made the national news. They went to all the major cities in the U.S. and they bought 200 bags in every major city in the U.S. And out of those 200 bags, it's like over half of them, like some places, 75, 90% of them had this industrial adhesive in the fentanyl.
In the fentanyl, got it.
And it tasted like garbage, and a lot of it had no fentanyl in it to start with, and then they started putting good fentanyl. They started throwing good fentanyl on the bad fentanyl and you couldn't get fentanyl for about 6 weeks. You couldn't even get fentanyl hardly. It was all boat glue. They called it boat glue, and it was an industrial adhesive that they used. They tried to use it as a binding agent to cut the car fentanyl.
Yeah, well, I think what I hear is just
it's just frustration.
Well, just how drugs evolve and how dirty it gets. As in, like, they're not clean drugs. They're not pharmaceutically made. It's like, who knows what's happening and who's producing those and what you're...
It's just like the vapes that we're all smoking now. No, there's been no clinical studies, really. There's been no long-term studies to show us what's going to happen in 20 years
That's right.
from smoking these vapes.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
I mean, we're like
well, it's an experiment, right?
I guess we're all kind of running on the
Nicolas, well, let's talk about your current situation.
My current situation is I got out of prison. On December 9th, 2020, I think it was.
Right before the pandemic.
No, this was when the looting was going on in Seattle. The looting was going on, and Trump had just lost the second term.
Okay.
So it's been 4 years. Coming up on December 9th, here in 3 weeks or something? No.
Well, today's the 3rd, so.
Oh, no. So in 6 days will be 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. I have a hard time knowing what month we're in most of the time because I've got no reason to keep track of the days or the time. I just recently got a watch. I got a Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers watch. But so I know what time it is at least.
But you got out of prison and then ended up...
Man, when I was in prison this time, man, the first time I went to prison, I spent half my time in segregation because I wanted to fight about everything. I would fight you. I fought more over food. I fought a guy over over flipping peas once. He was flipping peas. We would eat in the day room, and he would use his spoon, and he flipped a pea into my cell. One of the peas he was flipping landed in my cell, and I told him he's going to have to go get that because I just cleaned my cell, and I made a big deal about it. He didn't want to pick up the pea he flung into my cell, so I beat him up for it. Another guy beat up over a biscuit. I beat another guy up over a piece of chicken.
For real?
Yeah.
Chicken?
Yeah, a piece of chicken.
Shit happens.
Yeah. We had to eat in our cell that night, and he owed me a piece of chicken, and he didn't save that piece of chicken for me. And chicken on the bone, man, they would feed us chicken on the bone in Florida, in the jail there in Charlotte County, 3 times a week. Man, and then some places you don't ever get chicken on the bone. They'd kill you over a chicken on the bone.
So it was precious, kind of.
The largest riot in Tennessee history was over pork chop. They were serving pork chops for dinner one night, and they ran out of pork chops and started serving bologna sandwiches, and they set off a riot in Nashville at the Walls. The largest riot in Tennessee history was started over pork chops.
Yeah, that's it. Just what I hear is people are on edge.
Yeah, prison. It's a tension. You can cut it with a knife.
Right, and then
And it's
Doesn't
like
go
that
right.
out here too, because the theft amongst ourselves is the worst, because all it does is it holds us back as a group, because I can't leave my things unattended and go work for 8 hours and know that they're going to be there when I get back. So I've got to guard everything I've got as if my life depends on it, because without these items being out here, it becomes that much harder, and you're exposed to the elements that much more, and
Because your life may depend on it.
yeah, I mean, you might freeze with
Right.
you could die from exposure. You could I mean,
Well, how long you been out here?
I've been experiencing homelessness for about 3 years now. The first 9 months, I met Tanya after 9 months out of prison. Man, when I got out of prison, this time I was 285 pounds. I was fat and lethargic. I had no energy. I had all kinds of things I wanted to do, but just no energy to do it, because I'd spent the first 3 years bulking up, you could say, because I went into prison 165 and skin and bones, just a rail. And then I get out 285. And so I spent the first 3 years, what I say, bulking. Bodybuilders, they bulk and then they cut. They bulk and cut. So I told the guys, I'm not working out, I'm bulking up still. And I would bulk up. I bulked up for 3 years. I got to 262, and I couldn't gain no more weight, and I wasn't dropping any weight. I was 262 for over 2 years. And then I started doing pull-ups and dips and doing bar work. And one of my bros gets there into the same unit as me, and he's like, "Oh, okay, bro, we got to start working out. He was restricted from the weight pile, from the gym, for a certain amount of time. He wasn't allowed to go
Because he was
to get his weight card, because he was in
using it
trouble. It was a disciplinary
Gotcha,
action.
Gotcha.
Where he had signed somebody into an AA meeting, because if you skip 2 call outs for AA and NA in a row, they take you off the list. So he didn't want his friends to be
Gotcha.
taken off the call out
he
for
forged
AA.
their name on
So
that.
when he gets to AA, he signs in a bunch of people that ain't really there. Well, that could cause a problem in prison, because if you're a guard and you think there's 15 people supposed to be in this AA meeting, you look in there's only 7.
Where are they?
You're like, where'd 7 people just go?
Yeah.
Oh shit, did somebody escape? Let's lock the whole prison down. And it turns into an accountability problem. So he shouldn't have been signing people into a meeting that weren't there. So part of his disciplinary action for that was he was restricted from the weight room, from purchasing a weight card, giving him access to the weights. Yes, ma'am?
I just recovered a car that was stolen on my car 2 nights ago over here. I just want you to know, whoever lives there, went to my car, took $20 and a couple blankets, and my card, I got the card back and some blankets, but I'm just saying, whoever lives there, they stole from me up the street.
Okay, ma'am. You just stole from me, ma'am. I'm doing an interview here on camera, and you just photo bombed, video bombed my interview here. You just stole from me, ma'am. For whatever that's worth. May it not be worth anything to you. I mean, but somehow she's better than thou.
Yeah, it's interesting. What does
I
that
mean,
feel like?
why did she need to tell us that? Clearly, we're in the middle. She wanted whoever watches this to know that she has been violated. Her personal space, her personal property was violated by somebody from over there. And she felt like, because we were somehow in the vicinity over there, that maybe we know over there or whatnot, and maybe we could spread the message. I don't know what she thought, but she feels better for having
Said that to
spoken her word.
Right.
She spoke her truth and her, yeah. I mean,
Well,
that lady should not. Her personal space and privacy, her personal property, should not have been violated, and I agree with that. And I'm sorry that happened to her, and I'm sure that whoever did it was. I'm sure that a fentanyl addiction was the root cause of it. We need policies that work, and man, it's so frustrating to me because I could see a future, a better future, but I can't get through to people who are on the other side of it.
Well, there's policymakers, and you know, I don't know who's going to see this. You don't know. We don't know who's going to see this. A week from now, 2 weeks, 2 years, 10 years from now, we don't know.
When I was in prison this last time, I did everything I could to make sure that, like I said, the first time I was in prison, I spent half my time in the hole. And while I'm in the hole, I learned to meditate on the future, you know? And I would basically daydream about getting out. When I get out, I'm going to do this. Or when I get out, I'm going to do that. And all the like pro-social things I want to do, all the, you know, right choices I want to make, and all the, you know, the better life that I want to have, you know? And without the, you know, trips to prison, and without all the negative consequences of a criminal lifestyle and the addiction and all of that, you know. And I would basically daydream about the future, and that's what got me. And this last time, I knew that that one day, if God, if you will, had for me. I knew that first of all, I knew that my will for my future was also God's will for my future. Soon after my son's mother left me, I prayed about it, and recently I was saved when I was 20, if that's what you call it. But up until I was 20, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in a higher power. And then that year at Christmas, I had two of my best friends die the week of Christmas. And I had to go to a funeral the day before Christmas, and I had to go to a funeral the day after Christmas. And at Jason's funeral,
Somebody, you know my little cart thing, you know, with all the backpacks in it? Somebody just dumped all the backpacks out and stole the cart. You know, we can disrupt your building. I'm about to go kill a motherfucker. You see something?
yeah,
I'll be like,
yeah, we just saw the lady that just came and photobombed my video said that someone stole that cart. Where did you find it? She said someone stole that cart or a cart like it from her car 2 days ago with a blanket.
So she stole mine?
She said that one was hers.
Where'd she go?
She got in her car and took off that way after photobombing our
Let
video.
her take my shit?
I didn't see that part. She just pulled up right here and said 2 days ago or a week ago, somebody.
She said $20. Someone took $20 out of her car.
Go around and grab
No,
my-
she had already taken the cart. And then she came parked right here and said, whoever is over there stole this cart from my vehicle a few days or a week ago. Where'd you find that cart?
That cart was over down
At the boat launch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you found that cart at the boat launch.
Yes.
So whoever took it to the boat launch must have stole it from that lady.
I'm sure there's others.
That's the only one they made, Tanya.
I know, the factory only made one.
That's the only one they made.
My God. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to prison, I swear to God.
That's the only one they made, and that lady was certain.
I was mad because I've had two people come up to me and just bother me. Can I have a backpack, Tony? Can I have a backpack? They're not mine. But if you quit interrupting me, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
This is Tanya Sue,
Oh yeah, we met.
my lovely
But anyway,
wife to be.
I hear you talking and you sound so southern and
We
cute.
were in love at first sight.
Yep. We knew the first weekend that we were together, I said, break up with your girlfriend.
You're mine.
Did
You're
you have
mine.
a Did you
We're
have a
getting
girlfriend?
married.
Yeah, I'd been with this girl for 6 months.
9 months.
She had a 16-year-old daughter that she was almost done raising, and she was willing to marry me and have a baby. This woman was.
She's ready to go.
No, I can't have
And she was like, but when I met Tanya, I knew that Ashley was old news.
right.
You know, but Ashley,
You do.
you know how I
do
could
you.
tell?
Huh.
Because soon after we met, I had a medical. I needed some. Oh Lord,
It's a true fact. He was in the hospital for days.
I needed some medical. I needed help bathing myself. Even
Okay.
I had infections in all of my joints, and my wrists and my ankles. I couldn't hardly walk, and I had to have someone help me use the restroom and shower even.
Vulnerable.
And
Very
Ashley
vulnerable.
wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah.
You can't believe
But
that.
but she was. I mean, so that's how I know. That's how you know if somebody really loves you, is if they're willing to clean up after your messes when you're not able to clean up after them yourself.
And having only been with him like 3 days, but you know, he said to me, "You're getting older," because I'm 13 years older than him.
Lord.
He goes, "You have to find someone in your life who you'll be with as you get old to help you clean your ass." Really. But
Man, we've been through so much together.
yeah, I would say our courtship was in the emergency room. He was hit by a car. I ran him over.
Man,
He was hit by your car?
no,
I ran
listen
him
to
over with a
this.
box truck.
So-
A box truck. Remember I told you my neighbors told us that you haul a box truck?
You ran him over with that box truck?
She tried to.
I was trying to ditch him for $20 I got from somebody.
She collected a debt that someone owed me, and she was trying to make her getaway with the loot. And I was on a bicycle, and I'm like, "Oh, I seen her. She just got that $20 she owes me, and she's trying to get away. I'm trying to catch up to her, and I drove the bicycle right into the driver's side of her truck,
into the mirror.
trying to make sure she didn't get away with all our money. She 20 was it was all I had at that
It was your
time.
money though.
Yeah, she was
Wow.
trying to take.
I
Yeah,
was trying to take his money.
Well, let's
I
wrap.
paid when I met her. I paid 3 times. I paid for her to go get her manicure and pedicure.
Good for you.
All 3
casino.
times she went to the casino.
So you know what this man did? When I fell in love with him, he washed my feet and did my feet. I took pictures.
After paying for her manicure and pedicure
It
3
was the
times,
most beautiful act of human.
finally I just did it
I've
myself.
ever seen in my life. I bawled. I was humiliated because my feet were so gross. But it was so beautiful.
It is.
It was the most beautiful thing I've ever
That's an incredible act.
ever had a human being do for me to this very day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They say that Jesus washed people's feet. So.
Yeah, I had to give her a petty.
He did. He wouldn't give me no more cash.
I wasn't going to pay for another one.
Nicolas,
So when I was in prison this time, I didn't spend so much time in the hole, but I spent more time thinking about the future, and I wanted to make sure that my reentry plan was adequate and that I had backup options. So like I took all the programs I could, I took all the classes I could. I took like a Viking history class, I took a soap carving class, I took a Spanish class, I took a political science class. These are all classes that were offered without college credits by the student body, which was the inmate body. And but I also took a beekeeping program. I got certified as a beekeeper. I also took and got certified as a top 2 wildland firefighter. And my last summer in prison, I could have went to work release a year to the gate, which was 1 year prior to my release date. I could have submitted a request for work release and gone to a work release program where I would have been able to come out into the community, get a job somewhere, anywhere like anyone else could have a job, and leave every day and go work a normal job around normal citizens and be a part of the community, and then report back to the work release facility every night as if I was still locked up. So basically you live in a normal life during the day and you're locked back up at night. But man, at that time there was looting in Seattle, and me doing a prison sentence for a property crime, I just didn't feel comfortable being in Seattle, and that's where the work release was, and I just didn't feel like, if I go to this work release and I give up everything that it's taken me 4 years to acquire, that my comforts in prison, like my music player, my little J player, my TV, all of my property.
It's almost like you had some stability.
Yeah, because if you take all that stuff to work release and then work release kicks you out, which I see it all the time. These guys go to work release and then boom, they're back at camp or they're back in prison. The work release didn't work out for them so well. I've seen it time and time again. So I'm like, well, I mean, what are my chances? I've heard all the stories, and it could be anything. It could happen to anybody. So I'm like, I don't want to gamble
Yep.
at work release. I'd rather just finish my time here at camp. I'd already did a when I first went to prison in Washington State, I'll go to Coyote Ridge. I'm at Coyote Ridge for like 9 months, and they send me to camp. I go to Larch Mountain. It's like the difference between Coyote Ridge and Larch Mountain, you feel like you've just been released from prison and you're in a college dorm setting now, and it's like a party every night. It feels like a party in an all-boys college is what it feels like going to camp, because all of a sudden you can have a chew, all of a sudden you can smoke a cigarette, all of a sudden you can go outside anytime you want.
Different freedoms in there. Huh?
A lot more movement.
Yeah.
And you can go work outside the gate on a DNR program, Department of Natural Resources, or you can go on a community work crew and out in the community and do things, pick up litter on the side of the road or whatever. You're outside of the prison.
Yeah.
And so it feels like a total night-and-day difference. And so I made it at Larch for about 9 months, and they found some work crew cleaning up a homeless encampment on the railroad tracks, found a bag of trim, like weed trim, where somebody had trimmed a weed crop, a marijuana crop, and it was a bunch of marijuana leaf and little buds. And they flooded, the prison was flooded with it, but nobody would smoke it because they were afraid to fail the UAs for marijuana. They were all smoking what they called spice, which is like the synthetic cannabinoids. It's a JWH series sprayed on like some marshmallow leaf, and it's a full cannabinoid, whereas THC is a partial cannabinoid. So some of these spice synthetic weed substitutes or whatever, like guys in the military who can't smoke weed would smoke this stuff. Some of this stuff is so strong, it's like tripping on mushrooms or acid or something. It's so strong. People have bad trips. And when you're in jail and you haven't had any kind of exposure to substances for a long time, and you smoke just a little bitty hit of this stuff, boom, people are falling out. They're having what they call episodes where they freak out, and clearly they're on some kind of mind-altering substance.
It's almost like psychosis.
Yeah. And so everybody's smoking that stuff. There's a lot of people smoking that stuff, and people make a lot of money in there selling that stuff. But I was one of the few people that was like, oh, some good weed. Yeah, I'll smoke some weed. So I smoked some weed and fell to UA for marijuana at camp at Larch. And I remember eating Thanksgiving dinner in the hole. And then I go from Thanksgiving dinner in the hole at Larch Mountain. That week, there was an 80-man riot at Clallam Bay. It started out with one black dude and one Sereno fighting head up. And the Serenos don't fight head up. If there's any other Sereno witnessing a Sereno fight, every Sereno present has to participate in the fight, or they're getting jumped next. So it goes from like one Sereno and one black dude fighting head up to every Sereno on the yard jumping this one black guy. And that's when all the other black guys are like, oh, screw that. That's not fair. So they all jump in to make it fair.
Hence,
and then when all the blacks jump in on all the Serenos, the whites and the Serenos have an alliance. So now all of the white boys on the yard jump in to assist the Serenos. So it turns into 60 Serenos and whites against 20 blacks. It was 60 on 20, and the blacks were outnumbered 3-1. Needless to say, it didn't go well for anybody, because at the end of the day, the gun tower is up there firing rifles at us all. And 3 or 4 times, everybody would lay down on the ground and because they're firing shots at us from the gun tower. And I wasn't there, but this is what happened. And then 3 or 4 times, one guy would jump up and start kicking this guy beside him. And so everybody jumps up and starts fighting again, and they have to fire shots again. 3 or 4 times this happens where everybody jumps up until they can get enough staff on boots on the ground to make everybody stay down. And so they had an 80-man riot on the big yard. And then which was either B or C unit, because A unit's the honored unit. B and C are the only real close custody units there. And then you got D unit, which I guess is the rats and the check-ins. B and C units are the real close custody units. A unit's close custody, but it's honor pod. They get ice cream every night, you know. And
This is in Washington?
Clawland Bay.
Clawland Bay. I don't know where
You can see the ocean from my cell.
Oh, so it's on the coast?
It's
or the
it's up there
sound?
near. It's up there near. You can see Canada across the across the
Bellingham?
water.
Kind of Bellingham area?
No, it's on the peninsula. It's all the way up Nia Bay.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
and Nia Bay and what's some of the other places up there? The Olympic Hoh
Yeah.
River,
Forks is over
Hoh
there.
Mainline, Forks, Washington. So it's 45 minutes from Forks.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Pretty far up there, right?
Yeah, it's all the way up there. It's as far.
Well, let's see. Let's again back
So-
to your current situation.
so-
Where are you guys? Where are you staying now, Nicholas?
Let me finish this.
Okay.
I gotta finish this. The other unit found out about the unit on the yard, and when they go to chow that night, there's another small riot in the chow hall, 20 man or something. So they locked the Clawland Bay down for 2 weeks, and when I get to Clawland Bay, they had just come off lockdown for 2 weeks that day, and I get there, and I'm the first chain bus after this riot, 2 week lockdown, and then I come the first day out of their cells. Here I am with my bag and my blanket. Like, okay, guys, where do I go? Where's my cell? Oh, that's my cell. Okay. Oh, I'm getting a cellie today. Cool. I hope it's one of the good dudes. And then my cellie gets there, and he was the guy on the bus that was telling all the stories that everybody liked. But he had racial facials, which is like to say he's got lightning bolts and swastikas on his face.
Gotcha.
Like tattoos on his face. Like, who does that? But so I'm thinking, okay, well, surely this guy's not going to be like a weirdo, or I'm not going to have to beat this dude up and make him check in. So he goes in his cell and he makes his bed. And I'm like, oh, well, come introduce yourself to the fellas and get the rundown on the rules and the day room and the phones and the kiosk. And, you know, because we got our tables, and every group of every demographic of people in prison have their certain tables. It's very racially segregated in there, and it works out for the best, I would say, being that way, although I don't necessarily agree with it. But it's in the prison, it works. That's the way it is. But you got to learn the rules when you get there. You got to talk to the guy who is in charge of the new guys. So when the new guys come every week, the bus comes, and you get however many new guys you get in your unit. You got one guy, that's his job, is to go ask the new guys, I need to see your paperwork. Where are you from? Why are you here? What's your story? And he checks your paperwork when you get there and tells you which tables are yours, where you can sit, where you can't sit, where you can walk, where you can't walk, which showers you can use, which ones you can't use, things like that, and where you're going to sit at in the chow hall. And you have to know these things, or you're going to be like causing yourself problems if you don't. So my cellie don't want to go out in the day room and introduce himself to the fellas, and I'm thinking, why not? Like, he's like, I'm going to take a nap, but he don't take a nap. He just stays in the cell. And finally, the fellas tell me, it's like, listen, your cellie needs to come out here before 4 o'clock count and get the rundown and introduce himself, or he's got to go by dinner. And I'm like, okay. So I go in there and I tell him, what's the deal, man? And he says, oh, well, I was at Coyote Ridge, and the shot callers there tried to tell me that I had to go run a mission, which was, you got to go beat this other guy up for us, because we're not going to do it, but we're going to tell you to do it. And instead of going and putting in the work, that he decided to fight the guy that was telling him to go fight somebody else, which was a bad idea. He should have, I guess you choose your battles, or so he said. And now here he is at a different prison, having to face the consequences of his bad decision somewhere else. So needless to say, like, He decided not to go to dinner. When they called count, he walked out of his room, walked out of the unit, and instead of turning left, he turned right and went into the custody unit supervisor's office and told him that he needed protective custody or whatever. And so I'm just glad I didn't have to beat him up or jeopardize my release date or something over this guy's poor choices. So, and Clawland Bay is where I got the beekeeping certification. So when I'm leaving Clawland Bay, I go and my custody unit supervisor, Mark Thomas, tells me, you're up for review. Where would you like to go? And when I was eligible for camp, they put a programming hold on me and made me do this Thinking for a Change program at Clawland Bay. And I was pissed. I'm like, man, I'm eligible for camp. They got a programming hold on me. I shouldn't have to do this program. It's not court ordered. So I had to finish this Thinking for Change program where my facilitator was Christopher freaking, his mother was the warden at Larch. And what was his last name? Anyways, his brother turns out to be my DNR boss. My crew. He was the DNR employee, Department of Natural Resources employee that would take 10 of us prisoners out to the woods every day. His brother's name was freaking I can't remember. I can't believe I can't remember his name. Christopher. Anyways, this whole family, man, it's like everywhere in prison I meet, this family is it's a family of prison workers and prison employees.
They're integrated.
And it's like the brother is my counselor. First of all, he's the program facilitator at Clawland Bay. And then I get to OCC, which is Olympic Correction Center. It's camp. Mark Thomas puts me in to go to camp, the CUS custody unit supervisor. And he's like, which camp do you want to go to? I'm like, I don't care as long as they got DNR. I want to go do DNR. I want to go out to the woods because I get to this DNR camp. It's OCC. I'm thinking, well, Larch would have been better. Cedar Creek would have been even better. OCC is the worst DNR camp you can go to because the mountains are the steepest over there. And it's more climbing and bigger stumps that you have to climb over. And, but I don't care. I just want to get out in the woods, And so I get to this camp, OCC, and I'm thinking, okay, well, at least I'm at camp, and at least there's woods. I can see the woods, and I'm going to be out in the woods soon. I'm going to be doing DNR. I want to be a DNR ranger. And but then I get there, and instead of sending me to the DNR unit, they send me to this therapeutic community unit. A therapeutic community TC program. 17 months they forced me into this program.
Is that inside or outside?
That's inside.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
17 months in a program where they make you tell on each other, write awarenesses on each other. I'm raising your awareness because you didn't make your bed before you left for the day, or I'm raising your awareness you didn't tuck your shirt in to go to dinner, or I'm raising your awareness for cursing. I heard you curse or something. You got to raise so many awarenesses to phase up. And if you raising someone's awareness is considered telling, really, because you have to put it in the box. You have to write it on paper that I saw whomever do whatever.
Sounds stressful.
And then you got to put it on paper, write it out, and put it in the box for the staff who are going to read it. And then they read these awarenesses out in the seminar every afternoon.
Call you out.
Yeah, so you have to stand up while they read you your awareness slip, and then you got to go to a hearing and accept responsibility for this thing or not accept it.
Wow.
And then they issue you homework based on your misdeeds. Yeah.
Sounds like military school or something.
So people I'll pay you 2 soups if you let me write an awareness on you, because you're going to have to write a 2-page paper on tucking your on responsibility or something. Because if I raise your awareness, then you're going to have to do some type of amends for your misdeeds. And so you get homework, extra homework. The more awarenesses you get, the more homework you've got. So it's like you got to pay people to get, or trade awareness for an awareness. I'll let you write on one on me this phase, and then next phase I'll write one on you, and that way we're not really telling on each other, but we're paying each other. Everybody's got to phase up, or
well, at least you're aware to do that stuff.
Man.
Well, hey, we're losing light here.
So
we can keep talking for a long time.
I fought 4 wildland forest fires.
Oh, good for you.
I did the 17-month program. There was no end to the program. You get to phase 5, they make you do phase 5 over and over and over and over. And they wouldn't let you go to work release. They wouldn't lift the hold on you. They wouldn't let you go to another program or another facility. They keep a program hold on you. And because they get funding based on how many people they got in the program, and they don't want to lose any bodies in the program, because so many people get to the program and they say, screw your program, I'm not doing your program. And it's hard to put people in the program. Nobody wants to volunteer for it. They got to trick everybody into it. And so finally, I was the first month or two, I bucked and didn't want to do it. And finally I said, you know what? If I got to do it, I at least want to get paid to do it. So I got a job in the upper structure as an expediter lead, which is the guy who raises awarenesses. The expediter, he's the one that's like
the top of the...
He's like the head law enforcement guy within the inmate body, He's like the guy telling everybody in line to straighten up and be quiet.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy that nobody likes.
Well,
it's a hard job.
Yeah. Was there a nickname for you or anything?
Yeah, a Warrington. Because we're raising awarenesses. My name's Harrington.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Nicolas Harrington.
Hey, one last question before we wrap up. I like to ask Nicolas. Is there anything you want people of Seattle to know?
Man, I'm on the dean's list at Renton Tech.
Okay.
4.0s in all 4 of my classes the first quarter.
All right.
First quarter, I get out of prison December 9th. January 3rd, I'm in class already. Before I was released from prison, I had went into the counselor's office. I had already mailed in my FAFSA application to federal application for financial aid for school, and had already received a reply that I was eligible for FAFSA. And then I went to the counselor, told him, look, this is the college I want to go to. Here's my FAFSA approval. Can you please call the college for me and get me started in? I thought I wanted to do the HVAC program. And turns out the first quarter was your prerequisites, like my psychology 101 and English, a couple other college readiness, a couple other. There was actually 3 full-time classes, and then like a half a class. It was like 2 credits instead of 5, so it was like 3.5 courses. But it was 4 different actual classes I was in. But I got 4.0s in all 4 of them that first quarter, and then the next quarter was electrical math, and I think I would have aced that too, but you have to have a certain calculator, and you need the book, and the resource office at Renton Tech, there was 2 cases of COVID that quarter, and I couldn't go and borrow the laptop or the calculator or the book, which would have been fine. I would have just went and purchased those items, but they sent my financial aid check, my disbursement, to the old address. So I had changed from one clean and sober house to another clean and sober house. And as soon as I switched addresses, I changed addresses on file with the school. But little did I know that those disbursement checks were already printed with the wrong address and in the safe and waiting for disbursement day. And on disbursement day, they didn't double check the addresses to see if has anyone updated an address since these were printed. So when disbursement day comes, they just throw a stack of checks in the mail, and my check went to an old address, which should have been fine. But the house manager at the old address was a little, I would say, a little, he was a dry drunk, I guess you could call him. He was a little a little sour with his position in life, and didn't really like seeing guys with 2 girlfriends or anybody that was winning and great at life. He just hated it. And when I got out of prison this last time, I hit the ground running hard, and I told you I was fat and lazy. I'm not lazy, but lethargic. So I went and got on Suboxone because it gives me energy. It just does. It gives me energy, especially if I don't need it and I take it. It's like getting loaded. It's almost like you're getting high on opiates. So I went and got on Suboxone program and started getting some energy back. And then I went and I called my buddy from high school on the football team. I'm like, hey, bro, tell me about this testosterone stuff you've been doing since high school. Tell me, man, I feel like my T levels might not be where they need to be. I feel lazy. I feel lethargic. I feel like I got no energy, man. I don't feel like self-confident. Like, man, testosterone replacement therapy changed my life. And I didn't go to a doctor and get it prescribed. I just ordered it online and gave myself a shot every 3 days.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Whoa.
but like 3 times what the doctor would give you. So a doctor might give you 100 milligram every 3 days. I took 300 milligrams every 3 days.
You ordered online from where? Some
ironbornlabs.com.
Well, you might cut that. Cut that part.
But no, get your gear from a reputable source. No, I just won't shut up.
Speaking of a lot of energy, hey, we got to wrap up.
Man, testosterone replacement therapy gave me a confidence, energy. I went from 285 and like all lumpy and fat to 220. I was like gunned in and had a 6-pack. Tell them, Tanya.
It sounds like you still have
I was a meathead. I was a meat cake.
A lot a energy.
I was a meat cake at 220.
Beefcake.
Beefcake.
Nicolas, thanks for your time, man.
Hey,
I
man.
appreciate it.
Make good choices.
That's right on. Yeah. Let me get that little mic and we got to take a couple photos.